Hey, folks, I'm live. Scotty Roberts here. It is Wednesday night, and I want to welcome you back to my little program here. And let me just get a little lined up there. Sometimes my camera is not always in the right position, and I got to get it lined up for you. And I want to welcome you here. We've got a few people lined up already. Good to have you here. Suze, good to see you. Audrey, nice to see you as well. And Susie Q, I see here that you might have to take your leave early. That's just fine. I understand. Cynthia, how you doing? And Topper, good to see you. TT, good to see you too. And Becky, nice to have you here. Tonight, I'm going to talk about a few little matters of business that are kind of exciting about this program and this show. If you saw by the header tonight, that should give you a little bit of a hint. And before I do that, I want to say 2 hours from now at 11 p.m. Central Standard Time, midnight out east, which is actually tomorrow, which would be Thursday morning, Rocky Stucci and I are live on the Situation Room, Rocky Stucci's Situation Room. And so be there 2 hours from now after this show, depending on how long we go. It could be an hour after this show, a half hour after this show, 20 minutes after this show. All depends on how far along we get tonight and what we're doing. Philip Blair, good to see you. I misspelled intelligent. Did I? Now that's interesting because that's the same header I used years ago, and I just moved things around. Let me take a quick look here. Where have I got it? I'm in the wrong program. No, I'm in the right program. Let's see what we got. Hold on. I got to see this for myself. Where the heck did it go? All right. So I spelled intelligent talk wrong. Are you dicking with me, or did I actually do that? Let's see. Hang on while I look it up. If I can find out where it is. Let's see. Intrepid, right there. Let me open this up. Intelligent talk. No, that's right. You're just fucking with me. Thank you. Thanks, Philip, though, for making me second guess myself. And let's see. Who just walked in here? I saw the professor. There he is. I've been wearing my glasses all day. These are my daily glasses. And I've been staring at my computer screen because I have bifocals because I'm an old man. And I have to look like that. And I don't like wearing them because they're all reflective and they reflect all the light. And I like to have them off when I do radio and a simulcast with camera. But my eyes are blurry from staring at things too closely with my bifocals. So any of you who are my age and have to have bifocals or roughly my age, you get the idea. You know what that's all about. But I want to make a little announcement tonight as the header graphic told you. And by the way, hi, Cordia. I didn't see you slip in there. Good to have you. Michelle, nice to see you as well. Glad to see everybody. Jeannie, nice to see you too. And everybody, if I missed you, it's not on purpose. That's because I'm squinting a little bit tonight, which will be fun because I'm referring to an article I wrote tonight with some of the stuff we're going to talk about. So I'm going to have to squint at it to look at it. So that'll be fun. Let my eyes, my brain clear up for you. But I just wanted to announce tonight that this show, my daily evening 9 p.m. show that I do here on YouTube as a live stream, is now going to be, and the word is official, although we're still working out a lot of the details, it is now going to be on Odyssey, which is... I don't know if they're the same company that owns Mojo 50. I know they're all housed in the same place down in Texas. This is where we do the Situation Room from. This is where Robert Bauer has his Nexus show on Odyssey. This is where Jeff Dougherty and Rocky Stucci have their Shut Up and Listen on Sunday nights down at Odyssey. And so I'm going to be bringing this show 5 nights a week, same time, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. out east, 7 p.m. West Coast time. Left Coast time. And we're going to start on the 19th, Monday, the 19th of August, will be the official launch. Now, what's going to be fun about this, I'll be able to take your calls. Now, I may not open the lines every night, but I'm going to be able to take your calls, which will be very damn cool. So you can call in on the topics that we're going to talk about. And we're going to start getting a lot more guests. Right now, the way I'm set up doing this live stream, I haven't set up the software properly. I'm still struggling with it a little bit. So I haven't been able to take on any guests so far. And I haven't worried about it because I just didn't want to worry about it yet. It's one of those, I can talk well enough without a guest. But I've got a ton of guests I'd like to start bringing back in. And this is really an expansion of what we used to do when I did Intrepid Radio with John Ward. Now, if you remember some of the stuff I've been involved with in the past, I launched Intrepid Magazine on, it was like December 29th of 2011, I want to say. Might have been 2010. We launched in 2011. And that was after I had left the Ghost Hunters, Taps Paramag as their editor-in-chief. I left them and the next day launched my own magazine, which was Intrepid Magazine. And if you haven't seen that, you can go to intrepidmag.com. You'll see the magazine and what that was about. And I believe there's a link on there where you can go click and you can even buy, I don't have all the back issues of Intrepid Mag up, but there's, a half a dozen, maybe 9 back issues of Intrepid Magazine that you can pick up. And, I had one sitting here. Oh, I moved it back over to the bookshelf. But it was a slick magazine. Hold on. I'm going to go get it. I want to show you. And I don't know if the mic picks me up all the way over here. It's a directional mic. Let me get this and show you. Hang on. I'm coming back. So back in 2011, when I was with the Ghost Hunters and I was doing editor-in-chief of their magazine, they asked me when they first talked to me about wanting to come on board over there and what was my vision for the magazine, I was asked. And I said, well, right now your magazine is just strictly, it's a fan magazine. It's a fanzine for the Ghost Hunters. And I said, how about we expand that a little bit? Let's try doing some things. Let's build into expanding and bring in other areas of the paranormal, of the mysterious, ufology, cryptozoology, other things. Bring all this stuff in and start talking about it and expand the magazine. And so then we expand into a website and we build a community on the website. Now, mind you, this is almost 10 years ago. This is when building those web communities was a relatively new thing. Getting an app for the phone was a relatively new thing. And so I suggested all these things and they loved the ideas. But what we were trying to do was rescue the magazine at the same time. It had had some problems. The magazine was failing. They were almost going to bankrupt it. And they had about, I want to say, if memory serves, I think they had about 10,000 subscribers at the time. And which is small. It's a small fanzine. And we lost a lot of those. And they hadn't published in over 6 months. And so I came on board and I issued a letter to everybody in the subscription base. Said, hey, I'm the new sheriff in town. Jimmy Johnson is the new publisher. I'm the new editor-in-chief. We're gonna work very hard to make this magazine a smashing success for you. And I said, so if you, and I talked about the stuff about money and all of that. And I said, if you need to contact us here. And so we launched the new issue. And I think we did it with a cover story on Jack the Ripper, which was pretty cool. And so we released that. And in just a few months' time, we had regained all of the old subscribership with maybe a dozen people so pissed off that they hadn't gotten their mag. They hated us now. And then we added another 9,000 subscribers by the time I had left. And so the magazine was doing well. And I had gotten to know Jason and Grant from Ghost Hunters pretty well during this period. I would say Grant, I got to know him a lot better. He and his wife. And Jason was more of that boss mentality. And I didn't get as close to him, get to know him as well. I know him pretty well now. He's had me on his radio show with Jimmy Johnson a few times since then. So, but at the time when I left, it was because I didn't feel the magazine was going. They wanted to kind of stay where they were, didn't want to expand after I'd been there about a year and a half. And I said, okay. I said, I'm just going to move on. And I didn't have any contracts or anything that told me I couldn't launch my own. So I launched my own magazine. And that was this magazine right here, Intrepid Magazine. Now, this is the one issue, hard issue, that I still have on hand. We did it. It was nice. It was square bound, as you can see here, with the light catches it funny, but you can see there. Each issue was about 70 to 80 pages long. There's John Ward. We had David Roll in this particular issue, but you see the kind of authors we had that were submitting things to the magazine. And I thought the magazine was damn cool. And I designed this myself, and I wanted to make sure that this thing had the look and the feel of anything else, you're going to pick up on the shelf. And I wanted, this is a Cassidy O'Connor, Cassidy Nichols article. And there's one that I did this particular issue, just happened to be with the Sentiment Connection, which we've talked about here. And so this is what I wanted to do. We had some good advertisers in this magazine, some publishers, and other people. We of course promoted all our own stuff in here as well. We had a couple of sponsors, a Life Tea and stuff like that. So the magazine was glossy. It was good looking. It was a lot of fun to publish. And so that's my wife's company right there, Mama Hawthorne's. So that's what I did with Intrepid Mag. And off of Intrepid Mag, we launched, when I started doing work with John Ward, we launched Intrepid Radio. And that was where we ran for about 3.5 years. I think we only missed 2 broadcasts. And the only reason we missed 2 broadcasts, once the station was having some technical difficulties in a storm, and the other one was we always broadcast Sunday, and it was a Super Bowl Sunday, and nobody wanted to come in and run the boards that night. And so it was funny that year. So we did a pre-record the next year, so it still played. And so that's what we did with Intrepid Mag, Intrepid Radio. And then, of course, we launched the Paradigm Symposiums, which was just a branch of Intrepid Magazine, Intrepid Radio. That's where we had all the public speakers come. We had like the cast of Ancient Aliens our first year and a bunch of pundits. We had George Norrie was there, Linda Moulton Howe, Ian Punnett, and several authors that you'd recognize, Laird Scranton and others, along with the cast of Ancient Aliens. And the next year we had Scott Walter and some other people, and we ran that for 5 years. And then it just became overwhelming. I was working too much. Like I said, I would throw the event. It was fantastic. It was glorious. That 4 days of our event, we did a 4-day event. It was fantastic. But the 10.5 months wrapped around it on either side were all about raising money, sponsorships, getting everything lined up. I mean, it was unbelievable. It would cost us $100,000 a year to put this event on. And people would say, well, why can you charge $200 for a ticket? I said, because you're buying a 4-day ticket. You're buying a 4-day ticket with meals. You're buying a 4-day and blah, blah, blah. And people would bristle about that. Oh, it's all going in your pocket, isn't it? I said, I wish I was going in my pocket. It's like 1 year, I think we took in over $200,000 in revenue for the event. And I think out of that event, I ended up making maybe $5,000 that went in my pocket, which, or as I like to say, we had enough to pay our mortgage and go out for dinner after a year's worth of work on that event. So after a while, it just became something where I said, I'm not having fun with this anymore. And I have had a lot of, just a couple of weeks ago, somebody wrote me and said, hey, are you ever going to throw another Paradigm Symposium? And my standard answer is, the day that God cracks open the sky, sticks his bare ass out of the clouds at me, uses his hands to move the butt cheeks to say, "You will do another paradigm symposium." I said, "I'm not doing it until that happens." So we'll see. So the possibility, it's open. It could happen. It's open ended. But for now, I don't think we're going to do one in the very near future. So Rocky Stucci's in the room. Shut up. Good to see you, Rocky. And by the way, because I see Cynthia and others in here, and Rocky and everybody, and Jeff Dougherty finally made it out. The last Paradigm Symposium we had, which was in May of, let's see, we did 12, 13, 14, and 15. We had to postpone 15 and do it in 16. Spring of 16. It was when Jeff Dougherty came out. And that's the first time we had all known each other for years. That's the first time we all met face to face. So it was John Ward. It was me. It was Jeffrey Dougherty. It was Rocky Stucci, Micah Hanks. We had Lon Milo Duquette in the last one. We had Scott Walter from America on Earth came back that year. And Laird Scranton. And Dan Madsen, who you just heard us talk to on the Situation Room last week. So all of these people came back, and that happened to be the last one. We might do another one, but maybe not. Again, God's butt cheeks. Remember that. Hashtag God's butt cheeks said so. So there we go. Melinda, good to see you, by the way. I saw you slipped in. And Delaney, nice to see you as well. So what I wanted to announce was just that. Had some conversations today. Going to move forward, and our official launch date is August 19th, Monday. We'll be launching on Odyssey Radio with Intrepid Radio. And Intrepid, as I said, the reason I give you all that backstory was Intrepid Radio is what we used to do. So I'm just taking that, just like Rocky Stucci and I used to do the Situation Room with John Ward. And so Rocky has got the Situation Room now, and he's doing that. I'm doing Intrepid Radio from our past. So it's kind of this revivalist thing going on with all the things we've done. And I'm very excited about it, if you can't tell. I'm excited about it. Rocky's excited about it. I think you're going to see a hell of a lot of crossover stuff going on with these shows. But hopefully not even hopefully, get hopefully out of there. Like Rocky taught me. It's not that I didn't know this stuff. He reaffirms this stuff for me. He used to have a logo, and I can't remember the exact words. He says, like, prove it to me that I'm not going to do it. Go ahead. And he says, I'll show you I can do what I'm going to do. Rocky's got this persistence. And Rocky, if you're in there and you've got that, go ahead and put that up there, that phrase you're talking about. But Rocky was like, damn it, I'm going to do this, and we're going to do it right. And this was back a few years ago when we started doing all this. So there it is, folks. Tonight, I put up that graphic just to really announce what we're doing and what we're building up to now. So this live stream, is going to end up being official network broadcast. I guess it's international. So we're going to be a network syndicated radio show coming on the 19th of August. And you get to join me there. I think we're going to simulcast it right here on YouTube, just like Rocky does with the Situation Room. So you'll still be able to join us here. There's also going to be studio lines. You'll be able to call in, all of that. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I'm looking forward to it. So also, I want to say, make sure you go over to my Rocky Stucci's page, our page. I guess we can all claim it. It's his page, but streamingtalkradio.com. I think we should have called it Steaming Talk Radio. So Rocky and Jeff and I and the professor can all get on there and smolder. Steaming Talk Radio. But we're streaming talk radio. So let's see. What does Michelle say? WTG. What the what? I don't know what the G stands for. I said that to somebody today. Somebody used POC with me. And I said, I know what POS is, but what are you talking about? There's so many friggin' acronyms out there for the internet. I don't know all the shorthands. Oh, way to go. I'm there. I'm right there with you. Here, my era. Far Out. Cool. And so, do you know who made Far Out so famous back in the 70s? Anybody got an idea? Entertainer made that. Uh, It was John Denver. Just in case you didn't know. So, he used Far Out, and that's actually how I learned to play guitar. Just tell you a little anecdotal thing. I got it sitting back here. I'm not going to play for you, but learned to play guitar. I'd like to do some riffs with the professor, but he would blow me out of the water. I play with the guitar. The professor is one with the guitar and many other instruments. So he's working on a title riff for me, just like he did for the Situation Room. I also have to get him a logo. So we're doing a nice little artsy fartsy trade there going on. Love John Denver, says Delaney. I did too. In the 70s, I learned how to play guitar. I loved his music. And then our church youth group told us that John Denver he's an animist and he smokes marijuana. And so we should burn his record albums. And I took my John Denver albums, I hid them away because I had them in my locker at school. And I hid them away. That was the pernicious devil's music. And, if you backmasked certain songs on certain albums, the old LPs, you got Satan talking to you. So you got to burn those. I was never, I don't think our church was big into that stuff, but we were a big church and they got caught up in we should talk about this guy once. You ever hear of Johnny Todd? He was supposed to be this big grand wizard out of the Illuminati or something. I don't know what he was, but he appealed in the 70s to all these youth groups because he was talking about the devil and the music and how it appealed to youth and all that. There's an interesting character to look into. I guess he turned out to be quite a fraud, but that's what they were going by. And everything was evil. I remember Star Wars was evil. It was a thing of the devil because it invoked the Force. And you know what the Force is? That's just like Buddhism and stuff like that, which of course is all evil and it's all stuff of Satan and the devil. And this is the kind of church I was involved with when I was a kid. This is what formulated. And by the way, Jeff was when I talk about Jeff, I'm talking Jeff Dougherty. When he talks about unindoctrinating yourself, he was Pentecostal. I was evangelical, but we pretty much taught very similar things. He and I both had the same. We both had Bible college and seminary experience. We both were in ministry. We both preached. We both studied scripture, and we both left it after a while. And some of this stuff was all the stuff that was building up along the way for me that eventually made me leave it. So do you know if they spell Illuminati backwards, it doesn't say Illuminati. It says Itanimati, something like that. So yeah, Illuminati backwards is, I don't know, New Age music. You know what you get if you play New Age music backwards? New Age music. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff that's very interesting to look into. I like Jeff and I comparing things about our past. Now, Jeff, I will tell you, I respect this man incredibly. I have watched him go from just starting out with these ideas and actually writing his book about the Apostle Paul and launching into what he does. Consummate professional. He knows what he's doing. I like what he does. And I agree with him on a lot of points. There are things I don't agree with Jeff on. And Jeff doesn't agree with me on everything. And that's okay. We're not going to burn each other's houses down. So let's see. Let me go back a little bit because I see a lot of people saying a lot of things. Let's see. The John Denver thing. Way to go. Stream the steam. That's right. Smolder. I got to see Professor Bauer. You need to do your Smolder. And stop the music. Smolder. Let's see. You've got vids to back up everything you say, says Delaney. I'm not sure what you're referring to because I'm scrolling backwards instead of going back to the beginning and scrolling up. Check out Rainy's page. I've purchased handcrafted journal and sketchbooks from her and her gifts. She's at Mama Hawthorne's. Yeah. My wife's got her own page, and she does some amazing work. Her little studio is way over on that end of this room. She's got her tables all set up, and she does these handmade journals and things like that. She was doing dolls. You can even go to mamahawthors.com. We started a website for her, and then we just left off of it, and that's still standing there. Doesn't have any links at work, but it's got a couple of pictures of some of the things she does. But Audrey, thank you for putting that up. Her Etsy shop, Mama Hawthorne's studio. You can see a lot of her work over there and what she does. She may be slipping in and out here in the background too, because her studio's over there. She's getting all the kids to bed, and then she's going to come back down and go quietly work over in that corner while I'm doing this. Let's see. Delaney says, forgive my jokes, but I thought I heard your new hip squeaking. Is it this? Pardon the motion. Some people might think this is obscene. Rocky might get a little turned on. But no, that's just my squeaky chair. I got to get a better chair in here. My desk is high, like me most of the time. I put it usually at standing height. This is my drawing table because I like to work at standing height. But my hip and all that, sometimes it's a little fatiguing. So I've got a little lower, and I got a high bar chair here, and I got to get something better for this. So we'll see what happens. If anybody out there makes chairs, cool chairs, let me know. Serious, honest, intellectual talk, says Delaney. Yes. Let's see. We got Joe Lee. I didn't see you sneak in there. Good to see you, Joe Lee. Glad to have you here. And let's see. Going back. Joey Aragon lives. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Surgery with the doctors today. Up to you. We'll never do it ever. Have to tell me about that one. I'm not sure what you mean there. Optometrist stuff. Cordia, good to see you. If I didn't say hi already. And just looking for more comments back here. See what everybody's chatting about. And then we'll jump into some stuff. So, hi, Scotty. All in chat. Says Cordia, me busy, diligently listening. Love, favor, abundance of consciousness. Thank you, Cordia. I appreciate that. That means a lot. And Ron Frisbee, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. And what else we got here? Let's move on. So tonight, I didn't announce a particular topic, but I wanted to talk about. There's an article that I put together a while back. And I've got it in here somewhere. And I'm going to reference this as we go. But it's kind of a neat aside to just doing politics and junk like that. As I say, I get burned up about politics, and I get burned out by politics. Get this. Just within the last couple of hours, I had put up a post about Mark Morgan, who is the former border security chief on the southern border. He was an Obama appointee. And after Trump came to office, he agreed with Trump and agreed with what he was doing, but Trump changed him out anyway. And even Mark Morgan said there's no problem. There's no bad blood or anything. He says that's just a normal thing that happens. And but what he was talking about, he was in front of a judicial hearing and a committee, Senate hearing, and he said something about, in one of the questions, that there were 5,800 families they found that weren't real families just in the last several months. And he said there were 5,800 of them, he says, as far as what he knows. And that this might have been maybe last year, I'm not sure, because he's no longer in the position. But he said that these 5,800 families, and you know what has helped with that is they now have the fast, speedy 5-hour DNA tests that you can do that they are using down at the border now. Instead of waiting a week for a DNA test to come back, They can do them on the spot. And they found that a lot of these small children, a lot of these families aren't families at all. They aren't even related by blood. That aside, all I did was post an article that said Mark Morgan attests to the fact that there were 5,800 families in this last year that were stopped at the border because they weren't even families. And what happened after that is irrelevant. Why? All of that. It's just the story. It's Mark Morgan said this. That's the point of the article I posted. Just reposted an article, said that 5,800 families were found to be not families at all at the border. Boom. End of story. And I had somebody I know that's a liberal, somebody I like this person, but they came in and they started asking me to prove that what Mark Morgan said was true. And they started talking about, oh, well, your news source is a right-wing nut type of organization. PJ Media, I think it was Pajama Media or something. And I just happened to see the article and I posted it. Not because it was, trying to share intimate details of government with us, because it was reporting on what Mark Morgan said. And then this person online asked me if I could prove that, other than a source that is a right-wing nut job site. Okay. I said, I don't think they're a right-wing nut job site. They report the news just like everybody else. If they're making opinion, they give you their opinion. So I went over to YouTube and I found the video of the hearing where it's actually got Mark Morgan saying, yeah, there were 5,800 families, in a line of other questioning. And that wasn't sufficient enough. Then I was asked to prove whether or not, well, can you prove that he was telling the truth? I said, no, it's not my job. I said, I'm just relaying an article that said this is what he said. Then you asked me for another source. I showed you the video of him saying it. I said, now, whether he's telling the truth or not mine. I said, I'm not the diviner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. I said, that's not my job in the universe. And I said, and I got argument out of it. And I said, well, does CNN or Fox News or CBS or ABC or even the BBC, do they try to prove that what people are saying is the truth? Do they sometimes broadcast articles that some of us might go, hey, that's not true? No, they present the news, supposedly. Now, many of these have all become very biased in their politics, have gotten more so. So stuff like that is what wears me out talking politics. You either post stuff and you don't look at it anymore, or you go in and you converse. I like to go in and converse to let people know that I just saw popping up on my screen somebody else who was a liberal friend of mine back from my old Renaissance Festival days. Never talked to the guy much. We weren't close. We didn't hang out. We just knew who each other was. The mutual respect of being actors at a place. And I never see him post anything on my walls on Facebook as a social media site unless he's trying to dispute something I've said. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to go in and find that he disputed with me. This stuff starts to wear you thin after a while. And maybe that's the tactic. I have found, and folks, I don't know where all of you are politically and personally in your heart of hearts. This is not the point I'm making. You can apply it. If you're on the left, you can apply this to the right. If you're on the right, you can apply it to the left. My observation has been it's more coming from that whole resistance crowd that wants to resist and delegitimize and disenfranchise everything about Trump's presidency. Anything that comes out of his mouth. I haven't saw, I mentioned this, I think, on here. A couple of nights ago, I was making the bed when was it last night? I was changing a sheet. And I saw, what's his name? It was Monday night. What's his name? Guy with the glasses, comedian. I think he was a Dave Letterman, wasn't he, for a while? No, with Jon Stewart for a while. Can't think of what his name is off the top of my head. It'll come to me. And his opening monologue in the first 2 minutes was one of Trump had signed something. I may have mentioned this on last night's show, but Trump couple of days ago signed a bill in the Rose Garden that expanded in perpetuity kind of all the benefits for 9/11 workers, the EMTs, the police, the firemen that worked, that guarantees them benefits for families who lost people and so on. And the way this guy was talking about it, and it wasn't Letterman who said it, not John Oliver. Oh my God, who's the guy? It's going to drive me insane now because I'm having a brain fart about who this guy was. But he said, "Oh, it's so nice that finally a good thing has been done by such a terrible person." This is his opening monologue on a comedy show, a comedy late night talk show. Colbert, that's it, Steve Colbert. And I don't know why I had a mental block on his name. I get more mental blocks nowadays. No, what am I? I'm going to be a miserable 85-year-old someday. Should I live so long if I'm 58 and I have problems remembering things? So I don't think I have problems remembering. I think my brain's tired. So I listened to that, and in the first minute, that's the first joke out of his mouth. And it's not even a joke. Oh, it's nice to see that a good thing has finally happened from a terrible person. And I look at the TV and I said, "Shut the fuck up." And I turned him off. It's like, you just lost me. Is your show only for people who hate the president? I thought you were in an entertainment venue on not opinion TV. You're on network television doing a late night, supposedly fun talk show. I used to like him. He used to do some funny stuff. But when they do that, and it's constant, and it's thing after thing after thing, and I've seen articles. Just the only reason I was watching it, I didn't tune him in. I happened to have I turned the TV on, and then I took the sheets, and I'm folding the sheets out, and then his show started. And so I turned him off. But it's that kind of stuff that gives me a problem. And as Rocky and I have talked about, and I've said right here on this program many times, you get worn out by it. After a while, it's not that, oh, the left has worn me down. It's not that. You get worn out talking about it. You get worn out with people that are like, prove it. It's like, shut up. Where do you think hashtag shut up came from with Rocky? That kind of shit. And so, anyway, I'm sure in my new incarnation of Intrepid Radio, we're going to talk some politics. I have no doubt we're going to talk politics, but it's not going to be a show about politics. Let me tell you something. When I did Dead Reckoning Radio was my first big about 10 years ago, where I was doing a daily show for a while. Dead Reckoning Radio. I was asked to be on and do a paranormal radio show from a paranormal network that existed 10 years ago but doesn't exist now. I said, sure, but the only way I'll do that is if I can talk politics as well. So I had a 2-hour show, and what I do in every show, the first hour was politics, and I'd talk about politics. In the second hour, I'd always have a guest from the paranormal world, and I'd talk paranormal. And I enjoyed that, and I had a good time with it. So I've always talked politics, and I always will. But that will not be the main thrust of my show. It'll be one of the facets of my show and what we do. You're definitely not a one-trick pony, says Michelle Canterbury. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. And let's see. When everything is defined by 2 or 3 words, the conversation quickly becomes circular, mental fornication, and boring. Absolutely spot on, Professor Bauer. It's like, I don't know how many times I've said in the last month to people in conversation, when you use the word racist every day, and suddenly everybody and everything is racist, and you use and misuse and abuse the word racist over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, suddenly the word has lost its meaning. Racist is no longer a powerful word. It's a powerful tool in politics. You call somebody a racist, they got to defend themselves against it. The word doesn't mean anything anymore. You know why? Because everything is racist. Everything. Somebody's going to come out eventually and say you can't use whiteout anymore because it's racist. That's how ridiculously stupid it's become. So anyway, there you go. That's my palather on that. Bugs the shit out of me. Exactly. It's a tool, Lola Joy. It's a tool. And that's it. And I got to tell you, you know what a lot of this has done for me? Not that I wasn't going to anyway, but I'm going to vote for Trump again in 2020. Boom. Hands down. No question. I think he's doing a good job. I think he's doing what he said he was going to do. Is he rough around the edges still? Does he shoot from the hip? Hell yeah. But I think he does it. I think he's got backbone. And as somebody said, just today, I saw somebody say, well, the last 5 people he's criticized with venom have been people of color. And he's talking about, of course, Elijah Cummings and then the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez +3, the Gang of 4. And I said, so since when do people of color suddenly can't be stupid too? I said, have you ever stopped to think that the 5 stupid people that he's criticized, out of the hundreds he's criticized, just the last 5 are people of color? Yeah, well, that's it. Nah, no, shut up. Just because they are people of color and 4 of them have lumped together, and the other one is a guy who, we know why Trump criticized Elijah Cummings. It's because he's wasting all his time on these stupid committees to try to find a way to destroy or discredit Trump. And in so doing, he's not doing anything in his home constituency. Then they look into and they look at all the billions of dollars that have gone back to Baltimore. Where's that money gone? That's why it was said. And I get it. If somebody was attacking me all the time, holding a witch hunt against me all the time, I'd say, hey, you know that person who's the head of this, who is a big part of this? What are they doing in their home constituency? Are they taking care of business, or are they too busy witch hunting over here? And now, you know the story, folks. I'm not getting into it. I said I'm not going to do politics. Not tonight. So, no offense regarding your opinion, Delaney Jones. Lola Joy, I'm not sure what... does it really matter? Lola Joy asked, now I got to see what you guys are talking about. You're not happy that they took down General Lee's statue, says Delaney. I'm not either. History is amoral. Our history is amoral. I take you back. We talked about this on the Situation Room. I'm going to take you back to, I got to tell you, I was down in North Carolina back in March. I was working, some of you follow some of the stuff I do. It's when I was painting the big mural on my daughter's studio walls. And on the weekend, I went out with my son, my 18-year-old son, and one of my twin daughters, 27. And we went out and just drove around. We looked all around Asheville, North Carolina, and we were looking at cool places. I'm sorry, not Asheville. It was closer to their studios in Lincolnton, which is closer to Charlotte. And so we're driving around the area, and we're looking at old cemeteries and stuff. No, wait, I'm wrong. We were in Asheville. And we got to a cemetery where there was a bunch of gravestones, little white ones, that were Confederate soldiers. And they were unnamed. And there were 50 of them in this little shady, not worn down old cemetery, but, not your big, shiny, glossy looking cemetery that everybody visits every day. And we were looking at that, and I said, I related to my son a story that I had written about when I was in high school. It was the first time I saw this about the Civil War. And if you have never been, by the way, in Virginia to Appomattox Courthouse, where they signed the surrender, Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant. It's worth going. It's not a big built-up place. You just drive over there. I used to live in Lynchburg, Virginia, when I was working for a studio. We had a ton of history around there. That's something I love about the East. And it was a half hour from Lynchburg. So we drove up there. And did you know on the day of the surrender, Robert E. Lee defeated, I think as stalwart a man as he was a bit defeated. Um, all this he had done brought up to this point where he has to surrender. And he surrenders the Confederate armies, and the war comes to an end. And as he's leading his army out, they have to walk down the road, and the Union soldiers are all lined up on either side. And they're all booing and hissing and jeering the retreating Confederate soldiers who are walking out. And Ulysses Grant, this is a matter of fact, this is not legend about what happened. This is exactly what happened. He ordered them to silence and chided them. And he said, basically, that's enough of that. He said, the rebels are again our countrymen. And that's where it ended. And these men, no matter what they fought for, they fought and they died. Some of them lost fortunes. Many of them lost limbs. Many of them lost lives. Families were bereft because these were people, no matter what you think of what they were standing for, they were standing for their belief. And then we were all reunited. And while there has still been, there's been tension throughout the century and a half since that happened, there's still some tensions between the North and the South. Sometimes it's tongue in cheek, sometimes it's real. But these guys in the South, the South reunited with the North and the North with the South. We're one nation. And if we can't take a man who is an amazing general like Robert E. Lee and put up a monument to him, it's not a monument to slavery. It's not a monument to the Confederacy. It's a monument to the stalwartness and the character and integrity of the man who was the general of the Confederate armies. And he is an American citizen. He was all the way through because they never successfully seceded from the Union, meaning they tried to, they wanted to. The war put that all to an end. Reunited, he's an American citizen after that. He's a man who freed his slaves. And yet we have to tear down his statue because there's a handful in comparison, in numbers, in ratio of people who are offended that we have a statue of Robert E. Lee up. The night they drove old Dixie down, says Lola Joy. And so Robert E. Lee was a hero. I don't care what anybody has to say. And because some people want to use it as a political silencing tool, that you can no longer express that free speech. You can no longer honor a man who was a hero, a man who was a United States citizen, a man who was reunited with his country, didn't do jail time, wasn't executed, was nothing. They reunited, and he helped lead the South back into reunification after that war. And he retired a gentleman. He was a Southern gentleman. And yet we can't have a statue to him. Why? Because a handful of people say it's all about slavery and racism. And to that I say a big B as in B, S as in S. That is as bullshittery as it comes. If you don't like the statue, you know what? You don't have to go look at it. If you don't like the Confederate flag, you don't have to go fly it. So there's that reverse discrimination thing there. And don't even get me started on how some of the stuff people bring up nowadays, they want to revive stuff that happened 150 years ago. Somebody was, again, just a couple of weeks ago, arguing with me about slavery and racism. I said, dude, I'm not going to argue about this. I said, you weren't there. Well, this guy was arguing about slavery, but he was a Native American. And little does he know, he thinks because I'm a conservative that I have no affinity with anything that looks like supporting Native Americans or black people, or we're all racist, just carte blanche. What he doesn't know is I'm a huge advocate for Native American rights. Now, that doesn't mean, as I've said a million times, doesn't mean I'm going to give them my house and my land. Here, take this back to your tribe because your tribe was once here. That's not what we're doing. Everything's changed. History has changed. We are now a nation. And yes, it's not a perfect nation. There are still injustices going on. But as I told this man, I said, my people owned slaves in the past. Not me. I wasn't there. Your family, if you were black, your family might have been slaves in this country. Not you. This Native American man I was talking to, I said, I didn't take your homeland from you. I didn't burn your village. I didn't shoot your people in a midnight raid. I didn't put your people on reservations. I said, I wasn't there. And I said, you know, guess what? I said, you weren't there either. That doesn't mean there's not a sadness to the memory of that. It means that we all live in the here and the now. You have the opportunity to do exactly what I have the opportunity to do. If you don't wallow in, I can't do that because I'm so discriminated against and oppressed. It's like bullshit. You're not. I posted a little video the other day on my Facebook of it was Don Lemon, who it's very hard to say his name. CNN's Don Lemon. Hard to say his name without spitting. Don Lemon. Just because I think he's an idiot. He obviously doesn't know what he's talking about on many fronts. Let's leave it there. I'm insulting him in the open. He doesn't care. He doesn't know who I am. I debate him, though. But he's the one that said all white men are terrorists. He's got a big racist stick that he carries on his shoulder, oppression stick. And he was interviewing, of all people, Morgan Freeman. And he asked him what he thought he was obviously going to get a different answer for, or he wouldn't have asked it. He said, do you feel that racism in America today has something about people can't get ahead financially, that there's a financial blockade, there's no real distribution of wealth, so to speak, due to racism? And Morgan Freeman, you should see the look on his face. He kind of sits back, and he's very calm, as he always is. Sits back, and he goes, no, not anymore. And Don Lemon says, oh, really? You don't think that? And he interrupted me. He said, no. He says, you and I are the living proof of that. He says, look at where we're sitting right now. He says, I grew up a poor man, or a poor kid in wherever he grew up. I think it was Memphis, Tennessee. And he says, there was a lot of hard times. He says, but I worked. I pulled myself up, and I did it. And so did you. Look where you're sitting. And Lemon responded something with kind of trying to counter that very politely. And he says, well, I think that, racism, people are going to say you can't really pull yourself. You're giving us, people are going to say, how can you give us the pull yourself up by your bootstrap speech when there's so much oppression? And it cuts back to Morgan Freeman. And you know him, he's a liberal. He thinks in a liberal vein. But he looks at him and goes, bullshit. And they of course bleeped it out at CNN. This is bullshit. And he says, everybody has the opportunity to make it. And it went on for just a little bit. So, Cordy, you're a Heinz 57. Bread, spell check, I don't know what, or to whom blame, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. There's a lot of Heinz 57. My wife's a Heinz 57. But she's predominantly certain things. But she's got awful lot of other stuff in there. My wife, if you look at her, you can see it. My wife's got Native American in her. However, my ex-wife, blonde hair, blue-eyed. Her father was full-blooded German. Her mom was half Oneida. And so all of my children, blonde hair, blue-eyed, with my ex-wife, Abby and Bryn and Sam, they're all blonde hair, blue-eyed, and they're a quarter Native American, but there's German in there, and then they got my stuff. They got Welsh and Scot in there too, and Scandinavian. I found out when I did my DNA. I've never claimed Scandinavian, but I'm 16%, or was it 26%? I'm predominantly Welsh, British Isles, and I think it's 26% we found out Scandinavian blood in my DNA when we did our DNA thing a few years ago. And I just chalk it up to all the Viking raids on my ancestors up in the British Isles. So that's interesting. Let's see. Professor said something in here because I see people talking about him, what he said. So I'm referring to squeezing in a medieval torture kind of way. Thank you, Audrey. Audrey and medieval torture kind of way things. That's interesting. Ron Frisbee, German and Scottish. Let's see. Brianna Dunlop. Rocky, we deal with you too every night almost. Budumba. Just kidding. I know the pains of 6 to 19-year-olds. Grandchildren cannot come quickly enough. I don't care about grandchildren. Me personally, I've held off 27 years with my oldest daughters, and I haven't had grandkids yet. First one just got married off a few months ago. So I fixed the spelling. Philip, I didn't fix the spelling. Are you talking about in the header, in the graphic itself, or in what I typed? Did I say intelligent talk? I didn't fix it. Because you just pointed out at the beginning of the show, I haven't had a chance to go back and do anything. I don't know where I misspelled it, brother. But thank you for pointing it out. In case I did, I may have to go back and look. Maybe it's on what I typed out for tonight's show. Oh, well, let's see. It would be right down here underneath the video, wouldn't it? Let's take a peek, just for fun. I can't even scroll down there because I'm live. Oh, well, doesn't matter. Thank you, though, Philip. I appreciate it. Yeah, all fun and games till someone loses an eye. So I wanted to talk, and it doesn't relate to anything we've been talking about tonight, but did any of you ever see the Russell Crowe movie, Noah? I know that there was a lot of criticism of that movie. A lot of Bible thumpers didn't like it. A lot of Christian churches didn't like it. Because and if you remember the movie, Noah, the Russell Crowe character, becomes, just for a short period while they're on the ark, he thinks, I need to kill everybody because mankind is the scourge to the earth. And he goes around with an axe and he's going to do this, and he ends up not doing it, of course. Noah, I thought, was a fantastic movie. If you get a chance to view it, I think you've got to view it through a certain filter. And that filter is that it's not the Sunday school story you grew up with, the story of Noah and the ark. There's a hell of a lot more beneath the surface than what you learned on little felt storyboards and little play school weebly wobbly toys with Noah's Ark and all the animals and the big yellow ark. There's a lot more to the story than that. And it's a lot deeper, a lot thicker, a lot more. Well, to put it this way, the title of my article was The Madness of the Divine. And when I was critiquing, all this was a critique. And this is an article I wrote that actually got me by some people out there labeled, I'm a racist. I'm critiquing the movie Noah, and I'm being called a racist. And you'll laugh when you find out why. So I've got this article called up, and I wanted to refer to this a little bit and let you know some of the stuff I said. And this was my take on it. And, as I often do with all these big pictures that come out, there's hi to my wife. You can come and say hi? No? Bye? Oh, that's because you dress like that. Hello. So, sorry, folks. Yes. Where was I? There's been a whole lot of ado about the movie Noah. And as I often do with the big pictures, especially these biblical pictures, I wait for them with some anticipation because I want to see how they handle the content. And so I ignore a lot about what I hear the critics say. And I go into the theater with an open mind. But I gotta say, as I said in this article, before I get into the meat of what I felt about the film, there's a few things that you have to understand about these big movies, such as Noah. When you see them, like Noah, like Exodus, God and Kings, which I thought was going to be fabulous because it was Ridley Scott at the helm. It's where Christian Bale played Moses, and Joel, can't remember, played Ramses. Once I heard it was Ramses in that movie, he lost me because he didn't do any historical research. No way Ramses could have been. If you go back to the Exodus reality and reading that, you'll know why. But this whole thing about Noah, due to that subject matter, it creates hype and hype in the theaters, hype in the, and then there's controversy that comes along with it. Everybody's got to take a movie and give their 2 cents worth about it, as I did in my critique, but I did it many months afterwards. And what I understand about this movie going in, without actually knowing a single thing about it other than what I'd seen in the trailers, was the obvious. It was a major motion picture created by the motion picture industry, who have at the core of anything they fund a need to see revenue and profit. That's what they're about. Revenue and profit. There's nothing wrong with that. I got to tell you, when I published this magazine, you know why I stopped publishing it? I wasn't making enough profit off of it. And I was putting more work, time, effort into this, my radio show, the Paradigm Symposium, and making $19,000 a year on my taxes. So it wasn't worth it after a while. There has to be revenue stream, or you just can't do certain things. That's the given. And no matter how amazing the visuals might be in a movie of this nature, no matter the heart, the passion, or the bias that's thrown into the writing and the creation of a film like this, it's the finances. It's the bottom line. It's like when I write a book for my publisher. If my book doesn't make money, they're very hard pressed to say, well, what's your next book going to be? So it's got to make a revenue. And the entertainment industry exists and proliferates based on what people will pay to consume, what they're going to pay to come and see. And it's like the theater. Why do you think a bucket of popcorn costs you $8? Because they've got to exist. They've got to make their money somewhere. And very little can happen in the movie industry without the potential to generate revenue and turn a profit. That's why every movie is a gamble, pretty much. They're rolling the die to see how people are going to react to it. So the producers, the studio, the distribution companies, they live, they breathe, they exist based on what they can produce and what they can sell to you. And they spend a great deal of time forecasting the success of any given project. They sit down for a long time and go, is that movie going to make us money? What can we do to make that movie make us money? And then the opening weekends, that pretty much determines for them how they think it's going to go. Unless it becomes a sleeper film and over the course of 3 years, they make their money back. In the case of Noah, we all knew going in that there probably won't be a Noah 2. You know, is there going to be a sequel to the Noah film, Noah and the Ark? Noah and the Ark 2. You know, no, that ain't going to happen. So it's a one shot. And Paramount was pretty well aware of this when they invested their money in it. And Noah's the sort of movie that could be calculated to capitalize on its branding, its merchandising to a certain extent. Or I'm sorry, not be calculated to do that. Because what are you going to buy? Noah dolls. You're going to buy, Ark motor cars, RC Arks, things like that. It's the same thing. It's that brand of movie, like Mel Gibson's The Passion of Christ. You're going to buy a Jesus doll that if you pull the little switch on the back, all the wounds come out. So now you can have the wounded Jesus. It just doesn't happen. They're not going to do it. It's not going to make them any money. So the movie itself has to make the money. And, how many people wore T-shirts? I think a lot of Christian groups did, but in the Noah movie, how many people wore T-shirts and stuff like that and bought toys? So the appeal of Noah had to be strong enough to allow the movie to stand on its own dictates, on its own merit, on the anticipation of the audience. That's what had to make this movie go. And you know, the days of Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner and these glorious technicolored storybooked epic versions of Bible stories, it's long gone. And frankly, it's lost on a more sophisticated, admit it, you're a sophisticated audience. You want, show me the grit, show me the mindset of the people. That's the audiences we have nowadays. Noah had to reach beyond the gloss of legend and fairy tale and appeal to people on a different level. And I think they did it. And if you heard bad press about this movie, ignore it. Rent it, go see it on Netflix or something, and find and watch it. I think you'll find it very interesting. And what I found really interesting to people's reactions to the movie Noah, it was like watching the waters part. It was this great divide. And people either loved it or they extremely hated it. And much of the dislike came from religious sources. They panned the movie based on what they felt was the tampering with the biblical tale, changing the storyline around, adding things to put flesh on the bones of the characters. And I'll give this, a little bit of credence, as most people interested in a movie about such a religiously cherished story like Noah and the Ark or Moses or David or whoever, they want to approach any big Hollywood production with an anticipation that film is going to uphold their faith expectations and their predilections and a view of what they might have been taught that God was, who he was, why he was doing what he was doing. And make no bones about it, Noah was judged and prejudged on this basis alone, even before it hit theaters. I remember Glenn Beck, a conservative luminary, he went to see this movie and originally slammed the film based on other people's critiques. And having admittedly never seen the film prior to uttering an opinion, and much to Beck's credit, he apologized openly for jumping on the religious bandwagon. He took up the studio's offer to come and see the film himself. He still didn't like it, by the way, but I found his critique of the film to be based less on the story as a whole and more on the fact that it didn't perfectly align with the evangelical Christian story of this great Old Testament patriarch and the animals and his zoological boat. And this seemed to me to represent a mindset that only wanted one version. If I could direct a movie about the life of King David, if I were to gauge by the series I did a little while back, a few weeks ago, I would direct that story in a very different way. And there was actually, side trailing on this for a moment, there was a series that came out on the life of David and King David. And they only did 2 or 3 episodes and then just disappeared. I was shocked. I thought, this is really good. They even showed David having an affair secretly with the wife of Saul, the king, while he was in Saul's service. And a lot of people go, that's not what David did. He was a man after God's own heart. He was pure. But if you remember from our series, David tried to attempt a coup, and he did that by sleeping with the king's wife. And it comes out, it's not on the surface of the story. You got to dig for it. And you see the apologetic that covers it up. But then you find other places where the mention is there. And so when you see those things portrayed in a movie, somebody did their research and study and found some of this stuff out. But it got panned on television because people didn't want to see that. They didn't want to hear that. They wanted to hear their time-honored, cherished story. What did CamelTube just say? I don't know of productions that stand out in my head for flashbacks of epics like Charlton Heston. I'm your age, Scotty. I don't know what you're saying there. If you don't know of, or you don't know, I don't know. These productions stand out in your head. They do for me too. I love the Charlton Heston Moses movie, Ten Commandments. I love that stuff. It's a little storybooky. It's a little too technicolor. But man, I had the opportunity once, folks, at the what theater was it? If you're from the Minneapolis St. Paul area, you'll know what I'm talking about. But there was the old Cooper Theater, which is gone now. It's been gone for years, 25 years or more. But that theater was one of the old CinemaScope theaters, and they showed. Remember when they were taking some of these old movies and they were re-showing them in their original Technicolor on the big screens in the old, like the Fox Theater in downtown Detroit, places like that. Well, they played the Ten Commandments, and it was incredible. The Charlton Heston Yul Bible epic. The color was so rich and so beautiful, like you don't see it on CD at the time, videotape. This was like the early 80s when they came out and they were showing that. And I went to see it, and it was glorious on the big screen. Absolutely unbelievable. So I love those films for the art of them and the story. And you got to admit, some of the movie makers, they made these stories because they believed the story the way it was told, and they wanted to tell it. It's okay. I got no problem with that. Planet of the Apes. Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape. I love that, Ron. Yeah. You know, what did I hear? Is that the Planet of the Apes movie is an awful lot like what was it I heard it compared to? You had in the beginning Charlton Heston on the spaceship and giving his dissertation about man and the corruptness of man, and too bad there's not a better place to go. They crash land on this alien planet, and it's all apes, everything's inverted and turned around. Then at the very end, the big reveal in that movie, they were still home. They were on Earth. Statue of Liberty on the beach. I remember seeing that, and you're going, what the fuck am I watching? What is that? Is that the statue? No! And Charlton Heston was like, he goes, God damn them all. Then he finds out he's on Earth. I mean, what an amazing movie that was for its day. It was like 1968, I think that came out. So 50 cents at the Dixie. Yeah, Lola Joy. I think that's what we watched. I remember another Charlton Heston favorite of mine, The Omega Man, which Will Smith remade as I Am Legend. But The Omega Man with Anthony Zerbe playing like the head of the zombies. It was a very cool movie. Came out in the late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, we saw that for 50 cents at the local theater. So anyway, all that to say, and getting back to this article, is that these movies were made for a reason. And, you got the thing about this movie is people wanted an evangelical Christian point of view or a Catholic Christian point of view or whatever. They wanted a Christian point of view on this. And this seemed to me to represent a mindset that wanted only one version of the tale told. I can't watch any other version. No. Don't add any of that stupid stuff, that research stuff in there. I don't want to see that. I want my Noah and my Bible stories to be pure. Bathrobes and beards and glory and Technicolor and all of that. That's what people want. And ignore the fact that the real humans in such an off-the-normal scale circumstances would be a tale that's set in the ordeal of trauma, tragedy, survival, recovery. We look at the story of Noah and the ark when we're kids, and we learn about it in Sunday school, and we so easily gloss over the whole, and hundreds of thousands of people died, and they're all floating in the water, treading water outside, scratching on the walls of the ark, as we were told the tale. But we forget that part of the story is that it was mass genocide that took place all around these, 10 people in this boat with all these stinking animals. If this is a real story and not just an analogy, let's say for a minute it's real, it's literal, that God did this. And you've got this man and his family and all these animals all housed up together. And they're watching in front of their eyes humanity being killed by God. That would be sobering. Imagine being in that situation, that everybody you knew, all your neighbors. And what did the Bible say? The Bible said it took Noah 120 years to build the ark, because back then people lived to be 600, 700, 800 years old. And it took him 120 years. So he's got his neighbors around him for 120 years watching Noah build the ark. Could you imagine by the time you finished the ark, the front half is 120 years old? But that's the way the story is told. He knew these people, supposedly, and they all died in the story. And the characters in this movie especially, they're struggling to assert themselves as more than mere pawns in an enigmatic game. And you've got to admit it doesn't get much more enigmatic than an invisible, almighty deity casting all of his creation into chaos, holocaust, all while creating a mulligan for only a handful of sinful humans in the form of a protective ark. The story is wildly passionate ethos. Never mind the fact that it's hard to believe it. Look at the story. If this were a true story, what it's saying to you. What these sorts of religious critics generally found incorporated into the religious right movement didn't seem to acknowledge, or quite possibly completely overlooked due to the ignorance birthed from a single religious point of view, is that the movie Noah was based not only on the story found in the book of Genesis, but also on other ancient biblical writings, as sourced in the books of Enoch, Jasher, two Old Testament books that have been eliminated from the Bible canon of Scripture under the councils convoked by Constantine, the Roman emperor, starting with the Council of Nicaea and so on, and the following in the mid-4th century AD. These books were cast out, and so we lose so much of the story. Enoch. And just in case you're not up on your history, Constantine was a thoroughly pagan emperor who utilized Christianity to coalesce his empire. If you remember, he said two things. He said, one God, one empire. I'm sorry, one God, one emperor. One empire, one religion. So it's one religion and one God, one empire and one emperor. That's what he was trying to establish. He told a lot of these bishops, I don't care what the hell you come up with. It better damn well be unanimous when they took votes on certain things. And he launched the Council of Nicaea, among several others, gathering Catholic bishops together to determine matters of church polity, governance, scriptural veracity. The mandate wasn't to go seek the truth. The mandate was to establish unanimity. And the bottom line for Constantine had nothing to do with the truth. It was all about quelling dissent. He wanted unity. And he didn't care where it was coming from. And the books eventually ejected from the canon of Scripture were done so on the basis the council couldn't come up to an unanimous agreement as to whether or not it was truly God-breathed. And some of the books were regarded as such a difference of opinion by the members of the council that they were just simply set aside. They were placed in a grouping known as the Apocrypha. And they're all set there. And some of your Catholic Bibles have a lot of the apocryphal books in them that were taken out. And it just makes you sit back and wonder. That's another thing about Christianity. Judaism. We've got this book that is our guide. As they said in the Baptist church, the Bible is our sole foundation for faith and practice. That's what we were told. That was a saying. That's not just, I'm not just repeating something. That's a saying we had. The Bible is my sole foundation for faith and practice. That's what the Baptists believed. But when you do that, you obviously miss out on a lot of material. So what about, we got 4 Gospels in the Bible. There's 66 of them that we know of that were written. How did we come to the fact that only 4 were right? Big questions, which we're not getting into tonight. So it's interesting that in the movie Noah, the Watchers are mentioned, which I don't hear a lot of talk about until more recent years. And it was something scoffed at by the reviewers, when in the fact the Watchers, while not mentioned by the same name in Genesis, were spoken of to a great extent in Enoch and Jasher, those 2 books. Yet even the book of Genesis mentions the Watchers. At the beginning, before the flood takes place, the sons of God. Talks about the sons of God, the B'nai Ha-Elohim. These were the Elohim. These were the Watchers. And in the Hebrew language, and the English translation of the sons of God is literally those of the Elohim, the B'nai Ha-Elohim. And when you begin this arduous research into comparative scriptures, you're going to find reference to the Elohim as corresponding not to angels, but to Enoch's Watchers in the book of Enoch. Same beings, different labels. And it says in Genesis 6, this was the whole Nephilim story. And in those days, the sons of God, the B'nai Ha-Elohim, the sons of the Elohim, those of the Elohim, the Watchers, came down and intermingled with the daughters of men, the daughters of Adam, which is the Hebrew word for mankind. And if they were the same, if these Elohim were humans, which was one of the theories put forward by one of my seminary professors, I've talked about this before, but they said these were really just the sons of the aristocrats who built the school of the prophets, and these guys, young men, went down, slumming down into the valley with the common women. And that's when the Elohim came down. And I said, that doesn't ring true. You teach us language means something. And in the language, Elohim is a stark contrast to Adam. So, and we can go off on that, but we're not going to. But that's the basis of that story. If you've never heard me talk about that, I know Jeff has talked about that too before. The New Testament isn't in chronological order. No, not at all. So anyway, all of this stuff, back to Noah and this movie. We're not going to have time. I'm not even going to get through this material, believe it or not, about a critique of the movie Noah, because we're going to end this, in the next few minutes. But on a side note too, the book of Enoch, by the way, where we get a lot of this stuff about the Watchers and the Elohim, it was widely quoted by, I know Jeff and I have talked about this. There are manuscripts that have been found that, you think are forgeries. They're fakes, later fakes. But it's interesting that I think those fakes were probably, they're considered fakes because they date them to a certain era. Yet I think they're copies of originals, not the originals, obviously. We don't have many originals at all. But when you've got in the Bible, you've got biblical characters that quote from the book of Enoch, from the time of Jesus. I think it was Peter quoted from Enoch, or it was Jude. The Apostle Paul quoted from Enoch. Jesus himself quoted from the book of Enoch. Some of the minor prophets in the Old Testament quoted from Enoch. Either somebody went through and meticulously changed all those books in a later edit to reflect that, or the book of Enoch existed back when those books were written. And So they're not angels, by the way, which people thought they were. The Elohim, totally different being. And as I was saying, the Book of Enoch was widely quoted by other Old Testament authors, quoted by Jesus, yet Constantine's councils still found it unsuitable for the scripture. So while we have these later manuscripts that are considered forgeries, they were dealing with the Book of Enoch in 325 AD, so CE, if you will. So the book is at least that old. So the Watchers are represented in the movie as these stone creatures, if you see it. Little cheesier part of the movie. Could have done a little better with the special effects, I think. But they're these stone creatures who were entombed in stone. And but that's a visual representation again of seemingly little known account from the Book of Enoch. The account of the Watchers in Enoch tells the reader that the leaders of the Watchers, Shemyaza, as a result of his intermingling with humans and giving away forbidden knowledge of the gods, was buried in the desert, encased in rock for a time until God eventually freed him. And the ancient stories of the scapegoat can be sourced to the annual ritual played out by the ancient followers of the pre-Hebraic religion, in which they would send a goat out into the desert as an offering to Shemyaza, the fallen god. So even that stuff in the movie, Christian went apeshit because of that. But you know what? It's there in the pages of those older scriptures, the scriptures that were taken out. It was a little too Hollywood CG for my liking, but it made the point. Added to the fantasy aspect of the film. It doesn't incorporate through the whole film. There's certain scenes where these characters are in there. And many evangelical Christians have absolutely no idea that these texts even exist that mention these similar kinds of creatures being buried in rock. This was just a rendition of that. And they based their understanding of the story of Noah and the whole antediluvian world, the pre-flood world, on just the Genesis account. And if you do that, you are limited. You don't know. And I'm going to tell you right now, if your whole understanding of creation, of Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden, Noah, all of that stuff is based solely in Genesis, you don't even have half the picture because there's so much more out there. So we have more information available, says CamelTube, than any other time in history. Yet we still can't say 100% what, where, and hows of the true story of our humanity. Very true, Camel Toe. Camel Toe. Sorry, CamelTube. Where is my mind? So, yeah, stone creatures, Lola Joy. They just show the stone creatures because it said that Shemyaza was encased in rock and buried in the desert. So, sorry about that. Yeah, oops. That was a Freudian tongue slip, I think. My apologies. So, here, let's get back to this. We only got a few minutes. I didn't think I would take this long with this, but I wanted to get through this a little bit. Maybe we'll just pick this up tomorrow night and we'll touch on this a little bit because there's a whole lot more to this than what I've either gone through. And this is just in critiquing a movie. Tomorrow night, I'll tell you why I was called a racist as based on a critique I did of the movie Noah. We'll pick that up tomorrow. And some of the things about how the movie kind of depicts Noah as the green earther of his day. And it's not a stretch of the imagination to think that. It's not inconsistent with the type of character that they were attempting to portray in the movie. Noah in the movie is a man who respects what's around him. And he's shown as a man who believes that nature is to be revered. And this is an element of humanity that's been lost. And that drives a lot of his internal struggle in the movie. And so we're going to hit this some more tomorrow night. I'm going to talk to you more about this. So I think it's very interesting because it opens up. If you go and see a movie like that or rent a movie like that now, and you watch it and you don't know what the story is really about, it's going to be lost on you. To me, a movie like this opens up the opportunity to do your own research and to do your own study. Find out what the hell it says. What's really out there. And so there you go. Where's My Mind? Great Pixies song from Fight Club and the credits. There you go, Michelle. Yeah, Camel. You didn't think of that when you made that name a long time ago. Yeah, we've all had oopses like that before. So, folks, there it is. I want to thank you for being here tonight. A half hour from now, guess what? Situation Room starts with Rocky Stucci and me. And so I'm going to go freshen up, drink myself a little coffee. I made a cup to bring in here tonight. Forgot it. It's out on the front counter in the kitchen. And so got distracted by something over there. Sorry. So half an hour, join us in the Situation Room. Thank you for being here. Hit the little bell, hit the like button on your way out. Go see our streamingtalkradio.com. You're going to see all about what Rocky and I do, what Professor Bauer does, Jeff Dougherty. All those links are in there. You're going to find a link to my Son of a Patriot. If you want to help support me and what I do, go ahead and go over there and maybe buy some of our stuff. You can get Meatball Army gear there at Son of a Patriot. You can also get all the designs are mine that I've done for all the various topics of shows I've done, plus a lot of patriotic gear. Oh, patriotic, by the way, not meaning chauvinistic or xenophobic, which is the new definition by Google and others now because of the algorithms out there. I meant patriotic by love of country. Okay? So there you go. So everybody, thanks for being here. Good night. We'll see you again here tomorrow night. I appreciate you being here. And you don't know how much it means to me to have you all come here and spend your time with me. Love y'all. Have a good night. See you in a half hour.